Okay, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about a tripod lash. We have 3 poles here that are approximately 4 feet long and close to 1.5 inches in diameter, something like that. I think we called for 1 inch in our deliverable, but if you got something close to that, that's fine. And we're going to lash these together into a tripod. We need some cordage, and you can use bank line or paracord for this, or whatever cord you've got laying around. And you're going to need what's called a frapping stick. And a frapping stick is just a toggle that you use to pull on the line to keep it tight. So first we're going to take our line that we're going to use, and we're going to pull 2 full pulls. You remember we talked about that in the hammock video. A full stretch, outstretch of our arms is a pull. It's also called a fathom for an adult. That's about 6 feet. So we're just going to take a piece of this bank line, cut this off of here. We'll get 2 full stretches of our arms off of this thing. So there's one right there. And let's pull another one to about right there. And just a couple wraps for good measure. And then we can take our handy dandy knife here, cut that off. Okay. Now we're ready to start. So when we start our tripod, we're going to start with that timber hitch. If you'll remember how that timber hitch worked, you're going to come over with a loop, pass the line through the loop, and you could just basically pull that thing over like this and put a loop of line around it, just like that. And then you're going to wrap it 5 times around the line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's going to be the beginning of our tripod. You want to give yourself, somewhere between 3 and 4 inches here. So I'm going to scoot down just a little bit on that dude. Give myself about 6 inches. It'll look a little bit better when we're done that way. Now, if your sticks aren't quite straight, which mine aren't, just kind of lay them in there to where you can get them pretty close together. Okay, once we have our timber hitch in place, we're going to begin to weave over and under, just like this. So we went over the first one and under that one. Now we're going to go over the top of this one and under the center one, like this, and over. Now don't worry about having this real tight right now. Give yourself a little bit of space in there, because you're going to wrap it here as well, and those are called frappings, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So you have wrappings, which are your initial wraps here, and you'll have frappings that are in between. And we'll talk about those separately here in just a minute. So this is our second weave. Okay, and dress everything up as you go, and again, you can pull it get it fairly tight, but it doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to wrap fraps in there. And this will be our third one coming across here. Again with the over, under. The same thing every time with that. That's our tripod weave. Keep everything kind of straightened up here beside you. Now once we get 3 on here, what we want to do now is we really want to kind of get things dressed up a little bit. Because once you get too many wraps on here, this cord's not going to want to pull and lace in there and tighten everything up. So once you get to number 3, you really got to start paying attention to what you're doing. And we're going to do that 3 more times. So we'll have 6 total here. It takes a little bit of manipulation on your part of the cordage and things like that. Okay, now, once you've got that portion of it done, and again, you're going to have some looseness here. Don't worry about that right off the bat, especially where your initial timber hitch was, because you're going to tighten all of this up in just a minute with your frapping. Now you've got 6 wraps, so you're going to do 6 fraps, but you can do 3 fraps here and 3 fraps here to get your 6. But you want to have an equal number of fraps to wraps for the most part. And frappings are just going to go in between the poles here, like this, and they're going to pull this line tight and shore everything up. And this is where the frapping stick comes into play, because this is where you want to wrap a stick around here and pull this extra good and tight. All right, so there's one. There's two. And you can use the frapping stick every time, especially if you don't have a whole lot of hand strength, because you really want to get this good and tight. Get it dressed up nice. You got 1, 2, 3 in there right now. Now we're going to go over the top of this and go under here to start our frapping on this side, like this. And if you're pulling some bark off and things like that along the way, don't sweat that. You can debark those branches if you want to begin with, but you don't have to. And this will be our second frapping on this pole. Pull it good and tight. Use a frapping stick if you need to get it tight. And this will be our third wrap around. Coming up and around this thing. Just like that, okay? Now what you're going to do is, you started this whole thing with a timber hitch. You're going to end it with a clove hitch on the opposite side. So our timber hitch is here, clover hitch will be here, or clove hitch, excuse me, not clover, clove hitch will be right here. Get your frapping stick. Really give that thing a really good pull, and that'll get it good and tight. Now, you're going to have some line left over here. My recommendation is don't cut this off. And the reason we use a lot of the cordages that we use, or a lot of the knots that we use, excuse me, is so that we can recover cordage, because it's a resource. Right now, the knots we've got in this, we can take out, and we can recover all this cordage if we needed to. We can use this frapping stick now as a toggle on the end here, just by cutting a V-notch in here, putting our lark's head with a stop knot on it, and we'll have a toggle that we can hang our pot off of, and we can adjust that by taking turns around the top of the tripod.